From the moment we are born, we are surrounded by symbols. They're on our flags, in our schools, on our sports teams, and all over our politics. And one of the most persistent symbols, the one that never goes away, is the colour war of red versus blue. At first glance, it looks harmless, just colours, choices, preferences, and autonomy. But when you start peeling back the layers, you realise this red-blue divide is not natural. It's engineered. It's part of a game of duality designed to keep humanity locked into polarity, into division, into conflict, and ultimately paralysis. Today we're going to decode that game, trace it back to its ancient origins, and reveal how it's still running our world right now. Part 1. The ancient roots of red and blue. So let's start with the ancients, because nothing we see today is truly new. In Roman mythology, the gods Mars and Venus represent archetypal forces of masculine and feminine principles. Mars, the god of war, passion, and blood, is red. Venus, the goddess of love, flow, and balance, is often represented in blue. These were not arbitrary colours, they were intentional, chosen because of the resonant frequency they carry. Red symbolises fire, aggression, action, and propulsion. Blue symbolises water, peace, receptivity, and retraction. One pushes, the other receives. One burns, the other cools. The two forces were always meant to complement one another, but when they're set against each other, they form the archetypal battlefield of duality. And duality, as we'll see, is the game that runs this very reality. Moving away from Roman myth into Jewish mysticism, we see the same patterns repeat. On the Tree of Life in Kabbalah, the very structure of reality itself is represented by 10 sephirot and 3 pillars. The left-hand pillar, the pillar of severity, is red. Discipline, judgment, restriction, force. The right-hand pillar, the pillar of mercy, is blue. Compassion, forgiveness, expansion, and flow. In the centre runs the middle pillar, the balance point, the equilibrium, the axis that integrates them both. Again, we see the same encoded message. Reality is built upon polarity, opposites in tension, but truth, wisdom, and transcendence are always found in the centre, in balance. Alchemy carries this tradition into the Western esoteric sciences. Here we find the red king and the white queen, often depicted as sulfur and mercury, sometimes as fire and water, sometimes as sun and moon. Their union, the conjunction, was believed to produce the Philosopher's Stone, the symbol of ultimate transformation, of immortality, of transmuted reality. The Red King, like Mars, burns with fire and passion. The White Queen, often cloaked in blue or silver, embodies receptivity, coolness, and reflection. Alone, each is incomplete. Apart, they can destroy each other, but brought together in sacred union, they transcend polarity. Out of duality comes a third thing: transformation. And if we step outside the Western traditions, we find the same principles in place. In Taoist cosmology, the yin-yang express this perfectly. Yin is dark, receptive and cooling. Blue. Yang is bright, fiery, forceful. Red. Each contains a seed of the other, always in dynamic interplay. Balance isn't static. It's essentially a dance. In Vedic tradition, red is tied to Shakti, the fiery life force, while blue is Krishna's divine resonance, love, compassion, and cosmic order. Again and again, we see the same duality mirrored back to us through different traditions. So what does this tell us? Across cultures, across time, mankind has always understood that duality is woven into the very essence of reality. Red and blue are not just colours, they're archetypes. They're cosmic frequencies. They're opposing forces that shape perception, conflict, growth, and ultimately transcendence. And yet what began as a sacred teaching has been hijacked. Surprise, surprise. What the ancients saw as a balance to be honoured has become a battlefield to be exploited and weaponized. In the modern world, red and blue aren't just cosmic principles anymore. They're means of control. From politics to police sirens, from sports rivalries to superhero costumes, we are quite literally bombarded with the same polarity programming on a daily basis. The ancient archetypes have been stripped of balance and turned into mechanisms of control. Part 2. Red and blue in the modern world. When we step into the modern world, the ancient archetypes of red and blue are still with us, but now they've been stripped of their sacred meaning and turned into a malignant force, an instrument of dominion. What once represented a cosmic balance has become an artificial battlefield. The clearest example can be found in politics. In the United States, red is Republican and blue is Democrat. Over here in the UK, red is Labour and blue is Conservative. Two sides locked in eternal opposition, fighting every 4 years, every election cycle, as if everything hinges on picking a side. But as we've all seen many times over, no matter who wins, the system remains largely unchanged, in place and unfazed. It's a controlled polarity, it's the illusion of choice, and by keeping people arguing endlessly over red versus blue, nobody asked who designed the game in the first place. The same programming shows up in law enforcement. Police lights flash red and blue, imprinting polarity into the subconsciousness. Red signals danger, alarm, and confrontation. Blue signals authority, order, and control. Together, they create a psychic shockwave, an instant reminder of who holds power and who must submit. It's not just functional lighting, it's programming through the lens of ritual color coding, embedding the red and blue polarity into everyday encounters with authority. Sports repeat this script again and again. The most famous rivalries across the world are color coded red and blue. Manchester United versus Man City. Barcelona in their red and blue stripes versus Real Madrid in white, the neutral pole. College football in the US, basketball teams, hockey teams, no matter where you look, this pattern shows up everywhere. And for the gamers out there, just take a look at the MLG logo. Red, blue and white. It encapsulates all three poles. Fans pour their energy, loyalty and even their rage into one side or the other, not realising they're fueling the same polarity system. Red versus blue is not just entertainment. It's essentially a training ground for tribalism. Hollywood and media, of course, reinforce this program. Look at the superheroes. Superman, the archetype of American idealism, wears blue with a red cape. Spider-Man in red and blue. Captain America literally wrapped in red, white and blue. These aren't random design choices. They're subconscious triggers that reinforce polarity programming. Even 3D glasses, you know, the old school cardboard kind, they split reality into red and blue lenses, and you couldn't perceive the full image without looking through both. But we're never told to balance them, we're told to pick one side and see reality through one filter. But as you see with the glasses, reality only becomes clear to you when you look through both. And this is exactly how archetypes are weaponized. The ancient message of balance and union is lost. Instead, the polarity itself becomes the prison. We are programmed to identify with one side, oppose the other, and never notice the hands pulling the strings above both. So when you look around today and you see the red and blue everywhere, understand these colours are not just branding, they're not just design, they're part of the architecture of control, which is ancient wisdom inverted into modern mass programming. And the real question is, if red and blue are the battlefield, then what lies beyond the battle? What happens when two forces are brought together, not in conflict, but in synthesis? And that is what we'll turn to in part 3. Part 3. Purple, the fusion point. Purple isn't just a pigment of history or a corporate branding trick, it's a signal of transcendence, the alchemy of opposites. When red burns and blue cools, purple holds tension and transforms it. In esoteric traditions, this is known as the royal crown, the highest chakra, the place where human experience meets the divine. To wear purple was to embody authority, not only in politics, but in the unseen hierarchies of spirit and mind. The Phoenicians understood this better than anyone. They were not just merchants responsible for our phony phonetics. They were knowledge brokers encoding maps, myths, and trade routes into symbols that spread across the Mediterranean. Their Tyrian purple was not only a dye, it was a cipher. By controlling access to this colour, they controlled the flow of status and legitimacy. Kings and priests needed Phoenician purple to be seen as kings and priests. The traders from Tyre and Sidon didn't sit on thrones, but they wove the very fabric that thrones relied upon. They created the currency of power itself. This is why elites embrace purple not just as fashion, but as psychological technology. They understand what most ignore. Conflict equals destruction, and synthesis equals dominion. The masses are polarized, kept loyal to red or blue banners, while purple sits above, pulling strings, weaving opposites into one throne. But here's the paradox. Purple isn't inherently oppressive. It's a symbol of potential integration. For individuals, purple can mean the awakening of higher perception, the realization that truth rarely lives in binaries, but in their union. Where the powers that be weaponize purple to consolidate control, seekers can reclaim it as a color of self-sovereignty. To see purple is to see through the game, and to see through duality. To wear it consciously is to declare mastery of both fire and water, of war and peace, of matter and spirit. This is why rulers feared it falling into the hands of the commoners, because purple is the knowledge of synthesis, and once you hold that, you are no longer controlled. Part 4. Stargates and the cosmic red and blue. On Earth, red and blue are colours of division and synthesis, of politics and passion, fire and water. But when we turn our gaze outward, the same chromatic language reappears in the heavens themselves. Astronomers read the universe in colours. Redshift marks galaxies pulling away from us, their light stretched thin by the expanding fabric of space-time. It is dispersal, a departure, and the outward breath of the cosmos. Blue shift, much rarer on the cosmic scale, is its counter-motion, approach, convergence, gravity's pull drawing bodies together. Once again, red and blue reveal themselves as archetypal opposites, centrifugal and centripetal, dispersing and gathering, exhaling and inhaling. In astrophysics, the language of colour mirrors the rhythm of life itself. Theoretical physics often imagines gateways in terms of red and blue. In speculative models of wormholes and stargates, one mouth expands while the other contracts, mirroring the dual energies of propulsion, red, and attraction, blue. It is although as if any passage between dimensions must honour this polarity, a cosmic yin and yang encoded in the mathematics of space-time. Even at CERN, the subterranean cathedral of particle physics, collisions at near light speed throw off images streaked with blue and red. The visual language is almost archetypal. Bursts of energy rendered in the same hues that myth and mysticism have always linked to the primal forces of expansion and contraction, chaos and order. From galaxies swirling apart to particles colliding in the void, the same pattern emerges, red and blue as the oscillating doors of reality. They are not static opposites but dynamic gateways, the thresholds through which energy flows, collapses and is reborn. And just as on Earth, where red and blue synthesize into purple, perhaps in the cosmos there too exists a higher colour, a hidden state of matter or energy that transcends both expansion and contraction. Purple would then be the signature of this unseen dimension, the throne room of the cosmic synthesis. Therefore the symbolism of red and blue does not stop at human politics, or even at the dyes of ancient kings. It is woven into the very fabric of the universe itself, into the ways we measure distance, time and motion. Red and blue are the cosmic language of becoming. Purple, the synthesis, remains rare, reserved for those moments when opposites fuse into something higher, whether in the robes of emperors or in the hidden structures of space-time. Part 4.5 Quantum Duality. At the galactic scale, red and blue speak the language of motion, redshift and blueshift, expansion and contraction. But when we descend into the smallest imaginable dimensions, into the realm of the quantum, we find the same polarity alive and well. Duality is not just a metaphor here, it is the law. The double-slit experiment reveals an unsettling truth. Light behaves as both a wave and a particle. It exists in superposition, holding contradictory realities in tension. Like red and blue, these states are opposites, irreconcilable yet coexisting. Possibility and actuality, potential and form, exist simultaneously in a state of uncertainty. But this duality does not collapse on its own. It collapses when observed. Consciousness itself is the deciding factor, the hidden ingredient that transforms wave into particle, potential into fact. The observer is not separate from the system but a participant in creation, one of the many instruments in the cosmic orchestra. Here the symbolism deepens. If red and blue are the binary poles, wave and particle, then consciousness is the purple bridge that unites them. Awareness is the alchemical third, the philosopher's stone, that transmutes possibility into actuality. The mind becomes not a passive observer but the magician, collapsing duality into synthesis. This mirrors the patterns we've traced. On Earth, elites don purple to signify mastery over the warring red and blue forces of society. In the cosmos, purple symbolizes a hidden state that transcends expansion and contraction. And at the quantum level, purple appears again, not as a dye or an energy, but as consciousness itself, the unseen sovereign responsible for making reality real. From particles to politics, from galaxies to kings, the same rhythm emerges, red and blue intention, purple as synthesis. The colour of power, whether draped on emperors, encoded in starlight, or hidden in the human mind, is always the same. It is the colour of those who can step beyond the polarity, who can bridge the gap between opposites in order to manifest something greater. Purple, then, is not just a symbol of authority, it is the signature of the universal operating code. It is what happens when fire and water, expansion and contraction, wave and particle, possibility and actuality are brought into union, and the ultimate key to it lies not outside us, but within awareness itself. Part 5. The Purple Pill. Escaping the game. The Matrix gave us the most famous parable of choice, the red pill or the blue pill. Red for the raw truth, however painful, blue for comfortable illusion inside the system. The choice seems profound, but the trick is, it's still a trap, a binary frame to keep you inside of the game. The ancients would have asked, where's the third option? Where is the synthesis? The missing piece is the purple pill, the fusion point, the middle way, the middle path that dissolves the illusion of polarity itself. This is the middle pillar of Kabbalah, the central column that balances mercy and severity. It is the alchemical wedding of sulfur and mercury, fire and water, masculine and feminine. It is not one against the other, but the unification of opposites into something greater. The powers that be have always known this. That is why they've wrapped themselves in purple robes, crowned their heads with violet jewels, and bathed their thrones in imperial dye. Purple has always been the hidden code, the sign of synthesis and sovereignty. The game of duality only works if we keep playing. The moment you stop choosing sides, the illusion collapses. That's the trick. The system depends on your participation. But the power to transcend it has always been and always will be within you. The way out is not red, nor is it blue. The way out is purple. So what is the game of duality? It is the endless battlefield of red versus blue, fire against water, Mars against Venus, passion against reason. From ancient gods to modern superheroes, from political systems to cosmic physics, the same polarity repeats like code in the Matrix. Two forces locked in eternal opposition. The numbers themselves reveal the hidden architecture in this trap. In Gematria, the phrases man and woman, red and blue, and pick a side all collapse to the exact same values, 41 and 58. On the surface, these expressions look different. One speaks of gender, another of politics, another of the very act of choosing between opposites. But beneath the surface, they share the same numerical fingerprint, the same coded vibration. This is no accident. It shows that all dualities are simply different masks of the same system, the same algorithm of polarity playing out again and again and again. The game is not about the content of the sides themselves, but about keeping you divided, forcing you to oscillate between opposing poles. But the truth has always been in plain sight. When red and blue merge, they produce purple, the colour of royalty, sovereignty, and transcendence. Purple is not conflict, it is the synthesis. It is the middle path of Kabbalah, the alchemical wedding of opposites, the balance of fire and water, severity and mercy. Once you see the game for what it is, you no longer have to play it. You can stop choosing sides and stop fueling the conflict and stop feeding the machine. The power has never been in red or blue. It's always been in the bridging together of the two. The way out is, obviously, purple. The path of unity, sovereignty, and awareness. The synthesis that ends the game and destroys the illusion.